putting something so timely on, especially given everything going on around the world. I was approached to speak, and I was, again, beyond grateful to have the opportunity to speak to you guys today. Just wanted to make sure you guys are seeing my slides and everything there is fine as well.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the topic of my discussion today is around kind of Neu startup journey. I wanted to kind of, Neu has been on a roller coaster of a journey in trying to grow our business and get the funds we needed. And so, I wanted to showcase and more or less talk about some of the lessons learned and the value that I've taken away from this experience, quite frankly. My goal here is...
Yep. Claudius, let me interrupt you for a second. We were having some technical difficulties. And so, I want to start this from the beginning because I think it's important for people to know who you are. Claudius Mbemba is a native of Cameroon, Africa. He is the CTO of Neu Inc, and it's a startup building a marketplace that provides automation and hotel-grade turnovers for Airbnb and vacation rentals. Claudius has a Bachelor's Degree in computer science from Ohio State University, and he has taken out his time, and we are so happy to have him here with us to really join the whole line of incredible speakers that we have here at Juneteenth. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the virtual stage over to Claudius.
Again, thanks so much again, Lance. I'm very excited to be here and speaking with you guys. I'm very, honored having asked to be, to submit something to talk about for Juneteenth Conf. I think this is an amazing platform you guys are building, and for it to come together so suddenly was a sight to see, quite frankly. I've been on the back end of organizing these things. I know it can be a big challenge, but so I wanted to go into my talk today. As Lance mentioned, I'm CTO and co-founder at Neu. Neu is a startup in Seattle that has been around for about almost 3.5 years. And we've been on a journey, me and my co-founder, Kwame, have been on a really roller coaster of a journey, trying to grow and expand our business. I'll go into a little bit about what Neu is and walk you through our journey. But my goal of this conference and this talk is really for those who are interested or thinking about jumping into startups or are in the journey, give you my lessons learned from our experiences, mostly failed attempts at fundraising. They say the best lessons are always learned in failure, and we've done it about 3 times now. So trust me when I say we've learned a lot. And I wanted to kind of showcase and give you guys access to this information in case you ever get to a point where you want to go down this path. So that being said, my title of the talk is What They Don't Teach You About Fundraising as a Black Founder. My co-founder and I, Kwame, again, are both African Americans, have built our team, which largely consists of about 80% Blacks, some actually in West Africa. Our engineering team is wholly, except for myself, based in Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria. And we have a Seattle-based team that works out in Soto. So again, we're primarily Black company and have gone through the rounds of journey of trying to fundraise for our business and grow it, expand it to different geographies and increase the revenues. So let me dive in. So some background about Neu. As I previously mentioned, Neu is a Seattle-based startup. We are a managed marketplace that connects vacation rental hosts to local cleaners who can then clean the place before the next guest checks in. Obviously, due to COVID, a lot has changed within the hospitality and vacation rental space. And so we've had to, some call it a pivot, I call it an expansion. We've had to expand our business. Before, we were focused primarily on vacation rentals, as mentioned, but with hospitality and travel taking a huge hit, we sought to figure out what can we do to continue to grow the business. And so we started doing customer discovery calls. My co-founder Kwame led the effort on this, doing customer discovery calls to explore what other sectors of the economy are seeing uptick in demand. Again, we're a managed marketplace, but we supply the cleaners and we support wherever demand happens to be. So during COVID, we did some customer discovery calls, talked to mainly real estate agents and commercial offices, largely due to that's where the trend we're seeing in terms of needing on-demand cleaning solutions that weren't like contract heavy. So we interviewed and did customer discovery calls with these individuals in those markets and found some really good adjacent verticals for Neu to scale on. But that's kind of where we are now. I want to take you guys back in time and talk about the journey to getting here, and specifically around the fundraising attempts we've gone on and done. So again, Neu started back in actually 2017. I, as CTO, joined the team back in 2018, so that's where I'm going to start. So 2018 is when I experienced my first fundraise with the team, with our company. So Q4, I apologize, 2018, Neu set out on a goal to raise capital. We were hoping to raise about $750,000 in order to grow the business. Neu had at that point grossed roughly a little over $200,000 in revenues on just one geography alone, which was Seattle, servicing roughly 40 to 50 clients at the time, and we had brought on, well, roughly 10 to 15 cleaners onto the platform. So again, with those relatively small numbers, and by small I'm using air quotes, relatively small numbers, we were grossing a decent sized revenue, and we knew that there was something to this. And so for us to expand, we knew we were going to need an influx of capital. And so we went out again fundraising. We were only raising in the Seattle area. We pitched to only Seattle area angels. And while we were getting a lot of good feedback around the experience, again, keep in mind, we had no formal training, no formal practice. And so we just knew we had to fundraise and we needed to get capital to be able to grow the business. And so we went out and just did it. And in doing that, we learned a lot from this first attempt. So the first attempt, again, we're trying to raise about $750K on talking to only Seattle angels, and sitting down with our advisors. We learned a lot from this experience. Unfortunately, during that first attempt, like I mentioned, a lot of these are failures. So these are the lessons from those failures. Unfortunately, that first attempt, while we met a lot of angels and got a lot of good feedback about the traction, about the business, about the logistics, we were ultimately turned down multiple times. I can't even count how many, in soft no's, essentially. But there was one shining light in that we got a sizable investment from a Seattle angel, who is now on our cap table. And sitting down with our advisors, kind of reflecting on that first attempt to fundraise, we learned that first, around the time we were fundraising, we were actually running up against the clock. We had chose to fundraise again, this is something we learned after going through the process and reflecting with those around us as to why it wasn't as successful as we wanted. We were fundraising during what is called the short season. So my first lesson taken away is actually seasons to fundraising if you're doing a startup. There's the long season, which is actually about February through to June. And then there's a short season, which goes from around August to November, and September to November. And going through it, we didn't realize this inherently, but if you think about it, it actually kind of makes sense. And it's intuitive once you really think about it. There's a break in between those two seasons, and largely due to the fact that it's actually summer break. People 4th of July is usually the time summertime and 4th of July is usually the time when most angels, I mean, they're people too, take the time off, they recoup, they go on vacations, they have fun with family. So during those two periods, people aren't actually fundraising. And going into the short season, you hit up around Thanksgiving when things start to decrease as well. So if you're going to fundraise, again, this is the lesson learned from our first attempt. There's seasons to fundraising, and you need to be aware of what season you're in. there's a long season, which is early in the year, from February to about June. You have about 6 months to kind of get the deal closed, with little room for distractions from the investor side. And then you have the short season. And in between there, you've got summer break, where people are no longer really entertaining deals. They're going on break. And then December, when people are in the holiday season with family, well, November, December, so Thanksgiving through to New Year's, people are spending time with family and not focusing on deals as much. And so there's more distraction there. So that was something we took away after reflecting with our advisors as to why our first attempt wasn't as successful as we'd hoped. We realized that, in hindsight, we were running up against the clock. Now, there are a lot of other things that happened during that fundraise period. We also applied for Y Combinator, YC, which is a accelerator out in the Bay Area, a well-known accelerator out in the Bay Area. And we also applied for Techstars Seattle, another well-known accelerator out in Seattle, PNW. Both attempts, we got to the second round and interviewed, but ultimately both programs passed on us as well. And I mentioned this because these programs provide capital investment in addition to the program itself. So they're also a source of funding for most businesses. So yeah, that was our first attempt. And that was, again, the biggest lesson I learned coming from a zero fundraising background, jumping right into the pit of things. The first thing I learned was that you've got to understand that there are seasons to fundraising. You have to know when and where to be executing your fundraise, essentially. So attempt number 2. This was, again, taking the learnings we picked up from our first fundraise. There were a lot we wanted to change. There was a lot that we learned from talking to angels. We got a lot of feedback about not only the pitch, but the business, things that angels and venture capitalists see as red flags, things like that. And so we sought during that time to fix the holes in the leaky bucket, so to say. And so we spent the full year of, again, between our last fundraise to the next one, a full year working on making sure that, one, our pitch was honed and refined, or at least we thought. Pitch was honed and refined. The buckets were fixed. We had answers to common and uncommon things that may hold back a venture capitalist from investing. And given our past experiences, we thought we were in better footing. So again, Q3, Q4, short season of 2019, we hit the pavement running. Given that we knew we were running against the clock this time as well, and fundraising during the short season, we actually refined our ask as well. If you recall, the first time I mentioned we were asking roughly 750K. We're looking to fundraise around 750,000. Going into it, again, taking the lessons learned and that first lesson of knowing the timeline, the season, we reduced our ask to just 400K. We're looking to raise 400K. That money would be able to help us expand to another geography and address some concerns that we knew about the business, especially given that we were in one geolocation, especially that geo being Seattle. I failed to mention, but Seattle is a very cyclical tourism market. If you haven't been before, it's perfect and amazing in the summer. There's tons of tourists, but then during the spring and winter, tourism dies down significantly. So our business is impacted by that seasonality. And the reason we were looking to raise funds was to expand to another geography that we could, one, combat the seasonality component, and two, bolster the business by having more revenues, quite frankly. So again, going into our pitch number 2, we have all this in mind. We're answering the questions to our best of our abilities. We've got rebuttals to, we've got answers to rebuttals. Notably, how are you going to use the funds? How are you scaling the business? Where is your next location, etc. And we had really thoughtful, insightful answers to that. Namely, the next location we're looking to expand to would be Phoenix, Arizona, due to the fact that, again, it is the opposite of Seattle's tourism market, whereas Q3, Q2 in Seattle is amazing for our business. and Q1 and Q4 are not. Q1 and Q4 in Phoenix would be amazing for our business due to the it not being as hot. Whereas Q2, Q3, not many people are staying in Phoenix due to just the heat wave. So that would balance out our business more or less. And so these were the answers we were providing the angels. And we were seeing a lot better traction. We had 2 strong seed firms entertain, go through due diligence with us, which is just the process of understanding whether or not this business is investable and whether or not the firm wants to invest. So we had a lot more traction this time around. We felt a lot more confident about our answers. We had reduced our ask down to about roughly half, and we were still staying with the same audience, which was again Seattle Angel, PNW Angels, and the like. Sadly, still having made all these changes and corrected our pitch, we ran into similar issues where, while we got a lot more traction, we actually went through some strong. We actually went through almost to the last minute with a lot of these firms regarding providing a capital investment. Many of them sadly still passed in the end. It was back to, again, our one investor who came in at our last round, decided to double down and just showing his confidence in what we were building. And quite frankly, the fact that we were still alive, given that the company was more or less bootstrapped due to my co-founder pitching and bringing in some grant capital, et cetera. The fact that we were still alive, we were more or less managing and being very frugal and trying to grow the business. So the second round, the lesson there for me was around knowing your audience. And I say that because while we changed everything else, so I kind of look at this, I kind of look at our attempts as experiments. We had A/B tested just about everything else, changed the ask, refined our pitch, again, figure out the right answers, the right questions and answers, but we kept the audience the same. It was still Seattle Angels that we were mostly talking to, or PNW Angels that we were mostly talking to. And again, upon sitting down and reflecting on this last experience with some of our advisors, we came to the realization that the Seattle Angel community is largely follow-on money, in the sense that they need, and this is the feedback we got consistently. A lot of angels were interested in this deal and wanted to get in, but they wanted us to have a lead investor before anyone would put money down. So, and I mean, that is technically the definition of follow-on capital. And there's nothing good or bad, right or wrong about that. It's just, you have to know your audience. You got to know who you're fundraising from. So had we had that knowledge, what we would have done is sought a lead before we entertained all these angels. I guess we were trying to, in entertaining all these angels, trying to get a lead, someone to put first money in and decide to be that lead. But we weren't able to secure that. And so a lot of the soft circled interest that we had ultimately didn't pan out. And again, largely due to us not understanding our audience as well, and knowing that before coming to them, we should have secured a lead investor who would then make that interest much more solidified. So that was kind of our second attempt. This time around, Q3, Q4 2019, we reapplied to YC and Techstars again. Techstars ultimately accepted Neu and extended an invitation into the accelerator. And so we jumped at the opportunity to partake in such a great program, largely because we had some goals that we wanted to come out of the program and fundraise. And we knew that Techstars would be able to provide us again, we've had 2 failed attempts, at least when I was on the team, 3 in total, but 2 failed attempts at the time. And we knew we needed to learn more. We knew there was something missing and we needed to figure out what that is. And Techstars is, again, an accelerator that helps provide startups with the resources, the mentorship, the information to grow and succeed. And so that was our goal wanting to go into the program, was that we wanted to really learn how to fundraise and come out with a really strong fundraising event following the program. And so getting into Techstars, as I mentioned, these accelerators provide you with a capital investment in addition to the time investment. So we were able to secure a sizable investment from Techstars and leverage that to get us to the next milestone, more or less. We're leveraging that to get us to the next milestone. And so this is something, in going through the program, it was a lesson that was very unintuitive that I learned around fundraising. This is kind of a anecdote to our Techstars experience. But while in the program and during one of our sessions, something was said to the effect of, there are many companies in this program that will be able to raise off of a idea and a team alone, while others of you will have to prove out much more. And going into the program, Neu had been quite unanimously the company that had hit the most milestones in terms of revenue numbers. And so we felt confident that if we were able to get the Techstars experience, we would be able to come out and have a successful fundraise and finally kind of end the dry spell, so to say. But upon hearing that, but in the program again, hearing that given that we had been we had been in the community before, we had fundraised before, didn't have a really good track record of completing those, and two, that again, unintuitively, it's actually easier to fundraise if you're coming out of it with just a idea and a team. We were that was a lesson I took away, in that our success was that we had hit so much milestones, we had grown the business so much, but because we were having trouble fundraising, and because we had hit so much milestones, it was unintuitively hurting us. The success that we had hit was, again, unbeknownst to us, hurting us in terms of fundraising. And that is because we were being set at a much higher bar than other companies around us. Like I mentioned, the statement was, some of you will be able to raise on just an idea and a team alone, whereas others will have to do a lot more. And the realization was that we were the others who would have to do a lot more, given that we had already proved out a proven business model and had raised some and had generated significant revenues. Again, I say it's unintuitive because you would think that the company that has a proven business model and has generated revenues would be the one to get the investment. But if you think about that statement again, that success, that proving out that business model and generating revenues can be a hindrance, because now you're now having to reach a higher bar in order to gain funding. So that was something I learned. It was very, again, an unintuitive lesson, but something that I really latched onto during that program and took away. So again, this is something, if you're going through fundraising and you're trying to do a startup, it's an unintuitive thing to keep in mind, but it's something that I think all founders should keep in mind. Success can be a burden at times. If you're in the situation like we were, where we came in and we were one of the more established companies, and with our traction, we still had to do a lot more to get there. So I'm finishing up here with last one I want to kind of go through. Last fundraising attempt just actually happened. So I mentioned Q1, Q2, Q3, 2019. So Q1, we went through Techstars. We just completed the program. During that time, obviously, you guys are all aware, COVID hit. COVID destroyed everything. Our business struggled. We had to go through a lot. We had to furlough some employees and bring them back once things were able to be opened up again. But coming out of Techstars, we were.
Claudius, let me interrupt you, because I want to give you a chance to to continue the conversation.
Yeah.
Where people, how can people follow you? To get more insight.
Definitely. You guys can follow us at useneu.com first and foremost. And then also I'm on LinkedIn and at memberships, my last name, Ships, on Instagram and Twitter, if need be.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if anyone else got anything out of it, but I've got about 5 pages of notes. So I appreciate you.
I'm glad.
Incredible. Yeah, I'm one of those that you don't have to keep hitting me in the head with the brick. If you already received the stars and wounds and you're willing to share, then I appreciate people like you actually doing that. So once again, we really appreciate you joining us here at the Juneteenth conference.
Definitely. Thank you guys again. It was a pleasure to speak with you. Hopefully everyone got something out of this talk, and I'm happy to speak more privately if you reach out to me. Happy to give you more insights from all the learnings that we've been through on this journey.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
All right, Lance. Thanks so much.
All right now.